free the land by any means
necessary.
I'm Brother Zumbi New Afrika.
Opiemi New Afrika.
And we represent the Harriet Tubman District on the eastern shore of Maryland. We're here at Nation Day 55 here in Charleston, South Carolina.
Enjoying it. Here to represent the Harriet Tubman District on the eastern shore, and just want to commemorate and celebrate the 55th year of the PGRNA.
Right on. Time to break it down.
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Tajwa Jasiri from Columbus, Georgia. I'm with the People's Party for Independence. Our organization, we're standing on 5 principles of defense, education, economics, politics, and culture. And in doing that, we think if we can control these 5 principles, then we'll be able to keep the community safe, clean, and organized. And in keeping the community safe, clean, and organized, we know that we need to own, operate, and control the community. And in doing so, we think 5 institutions will help us, and that's a grocery store, a school, a hospital, a bank, and a community center. We've already purchased a community center. Next, we're going to implement a grocery store for our people. So we can all come together and unite to fight against all the ills inside of our communities. We'll be able to free the land, we'll be able to govern ourselves, and we'll be able to put ourselves in a position to where we can have some wiggle room. We might not always be free, but we'll be free enough to where we can breathe. So that's what we're looking to do, to have survival programs in place pending revolution. And we want to work with everybody around the world, work with everybody within the republic, so that we can have some type of cohesion, some type of common unity to do what we need to do in order to put ourselves in a position to be what we need to be.
As young people, you have to develop a sense of courage, right? I like to say freedom ain't free.
We always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all. It's not on. There we go. Welcome to another episode of the Voices of New Afrika, the show where we educate the miseducated and where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy. I got my grandmaster teacher, comrade Fadali with me. Missing is my brother in the struggle, Brother Kakaya. He feeling under the weather, so we wishing him a lot of positive energy and a speedy recovery. I'm sure he'll be back in no time because there's a very strong brother. But like I said, this is the Voices of New Afrika. I want to welcome everybody and make sure y'all hit that like button. Hit us up with a comment. Let me know who out there so we can converse with you properly, because the Voices of New Afrika is all of our voices. This is a collective conversation. It's not just me by myself. It is all of us together, but we got a good show, a lot of things talking about. Tomorrow is the anniversary
of 9/11. And comrade, how you doing?
I'm doing great under these circumstances under which we live in this country.
No doubt. Definitely.
Here we go. We've been having some audio difficulties in the studio, so y'all just work with me. But so tomorrow is actually the anniversary of 9/11. 22nd anniversary of 9/11, and you know, they keep on telling us you never forget it, never again, it never happened again, you know. But they always tell us to forget about things that happened in the past. You don't worry about it, get over it. But 9/11 was when supposedly terrorists attacked the World Trade Center. But you know, I want to just pose the question: who are actually the real terrorists here in America, and really who are the global terrorists? And I see people out there checking in Facebook. I want to say what's up to y'all, but who are actually the global terrorists, and who yeah, who are the real terrorists? I mean, are there some people who had supposedly hijacked a plane with a box cutter, or is it somebody else? You know, what's your perspective? What are your thoughts on this, Grandmaster
Okay,
Teacher?
so we know that the United States government, the United States empire,
It's a real terrorist. Now, what happened? Even if what they say happened. Uh, who was Osama bin Laden, and who were those people who were on the airplanes? You know, Osama bin Laden came into world renown when he was in Afghanistan, when the Soviet Union had offered to help the Afghanistan government overcome the Taliban, forces that were trying to overthrow them. And so the Soviet Union didn't invade Afghanistan. They were brought into Afghanistan by the government forces. Some of who said they were socialists basically, but it was the Taliban was opposed to these forces and were fighting, and the Soviet Union came into fight. And so Osama bin Laden, who was a Saudi Arabian, who were Arab, Saudi Arabia, went to Afghanistan, and he was given, him and his forces were given missiles. What they call those missiles? Splitter missiles, the ones that shot down the Soviet planes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Soviets withdrew from Afghanistan as a result of the United States aid to forces led by Osama bin Laden. But the United States, was also, it was instrumental in, and like I said, their mission was to kick out the Soviet Union and to make danger, to the Soviet, to make the Soviet military become weaker, which it did. And ultimately, the fall of the Soviet Union is due to his assistance or attempt to assist the Afghan government. And so Osama bin Laden, basically, but he was Arab, from an Arab Saudi Arabian family, and his family, were very wealthy, and a lot of them were in America. And so he turned it around. He turned everything around, and focused on, getting even with America, for his work in Palestine, trying to deal with the Palestinians, and so when we talk about that, they wouldn't have the weapons, wouldn't have had the weapons to overthrow the Soviet Union, but they turned around and like I said, did a focus on the United States and I believe that Osama bin Laden did engineer, the airplane crash, the things that happened. But here's a terrorist calling other people terrorists. The United States is the most terroristic nation that has ever existed in the history of the world. I'm going to say, particularly the modern world, because it has a budget of $177 trillion right now, military, and it has bases or some 100 more bases throughout the world, and close to Korea, Philippines, on Africa, and Africa created AFRICOM, to do terrorism on Somalia and other countries in Africa, dropping drones in assassinating leaders of African countries like Muammar Gaddafi, and so it has taken over the role of many of his partners, which is like France. The French are the ones that's supposed to be doing this so-called former colonies, and in Africa and all this. The United States has replaced. We got 1,100 troops in Niger right now, and is using Niger as a base. Has so many thousand troops in Djibouti, which is a small country, and it's using the islands off of Africa, East Africa, to attack uh, 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 resistance forces who are trying to overthrow corrupt neo-colonial governments in Africa. And the United States is doing everything it can to preserve these governments, as Britain and France and others, Portuguese and others who have tried to maintain their relationship, even though they don't have direct rule, but they do have bases in all these African countries, such as Angola, that the Portuguese has, and Britain has, forces in Sierra Leone, and France has forces in, in various numbers of its former colonies, because they are dependent on the wealth that they can take out of Africa and out of other places in the world in which they have influence, or where they had used to be able to rule, because they conquered all these areas in the world. And so when we talk about the real terror, the United States is the real terror. If we talk about anything that we want to talk about in terms of our negativity, the United States is the top drug runner in the world. That's a terrorist. So when we talk about 9/11, 9/11 is a result of the terrorism that the United States has committed against other countries in the world. And so the focus of the American people should be why and how, why did was the United States attacked through the falling of the two towers in New York, and at the bombing of the Pentagon. Think about that. The bombing of the airplane crash on the Pentagon. Why was the Pentagon? The Pentagon, which is the American, military, elite, who have engineered all of these kinds of attacks throughout the world, and have overcome and overthrown governments, and have assassinated leaders of other countries in the world. And so we must begin, when we look at it, we got to get the people to understand who is the real terror, and the United States and NATO are the real terrorists in the world. They have an organization called NATO that the United States lead, and the other European colonial masters heads of, and have incorporated other people into other nations into their grip, so that they can keep their power in the world. The capitalist system, to maintain the capitalist system under the guise of something they call democracy, which is hypocrisy.
Exactly, comrade.
Talk about a lot of different things. You mentioned how basically colonial forces, whether they be in the United States or Europe, Western forces, set up bases in countries, and I don't think a lot of people really understand how that works, how that really allows a country to really colonize another country in a way where it doesn't appear to do so. Because when they set up a military base, that means they basically have an occupying force right there, and basically all over damn near every country in the world there is a occupying force already set there. So when their particular government, whether that government is sovereign or independent or whatever, the case may be, if they don't do what the United States or whatever Western power wants them to do, if they don't play ball, if they don't turn over the resources, or don't give that country, the colonizing country, access to this particular country's resource, even if that is in the detriment of their own people, if they don't play ball, then they already have a military ready to strike at any moment. You know what I'm saying? So, and a lot of times when we talk about terrorism, it's like, okay, to people who have their houses and schools bombed and children murdered and all of these type of things. Well, they don't give a damn if the people who did it have on a United States Army uniform. That's still a form of terrorism. You know, because you have the United States who have been terrorists for hundreds of years. Black Wall Street, that was a terrorist attack. The bombing in Alabama that killed those 4 little girls, that was a terrorist attack. You know, we still have terrorist attacks going on today. You know, when they murdered Mike Brown, that's a terrorist attack. You know, so when you talk about America having this war against terrorism, the first thing they need to have a war against is themselves, because they have been the biggest global terrorists for the last 400 years. Well, even before the United States was the United States, you know, and before that, their ancestors were the biggest terrorists. So I find this to be extremely hypocritical when they go around invading other countries in the name of a war against terrorism, and when in fact the whole war against terrorism is not about even fighting terrorism. It's about gaining access to the resources of other countries. It's just a justification. And that's all it is. They don't give a damn about fighting some terrorism in which they cause themselves. You know, and the things that the people that they call terrorists are simply people who are just trying to fight to protect their homeland, trying to fight true terrorism. You know, and I'm gonna go to the comments. I see people are chiming in. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I'll go back up, and this is which Facebook did not identify this person, but I can go to the Naba page and I can see this is Kabbalah Simba. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Elder. And this brother says, connect with the National Black Council of Elders at nbcoelders@gmail.com. And I would like to actually learn more about that particular organization, what it's all about. I'm not really familiar. I probably should be, but I'm not. So let me know a little bit more about this organization, so we can, you know, we can unite on our common goals and objectives and make everything stronger. Susan Rogers, how you doing, Miss Susan? Good afternoon, everybody. Free the land and free the land to you. Also, Susan Rogers has a independent Black business owner. She does outstanding. She's actually a Black quilter from the old tradition of quilting. You know, I did some work for her. Actually created a little mini documentary. You have an opportunity to check it out. It's quite fascinating. Melly Queen, free the land, comrades and family. How y'all doing today? We're doing Black Tabulous, Queen. Thanks for asking. Thank y'all. Thank you all for joining us today. Sheridan Tag. Thank you as always. It's Melly Queen. Also again, Melly Queen, glad to see you back. Baba for Dolly. Hope brother Kakayi Ajamu feels better. I hope you feel better too. You know, I don't like to see my comrades feeling down. See, U.S. military are some of the biggest bullies and terrorists. I co-sign. I believe. I agree with you 1,000%. Some of the biggest terrorists that the world has ever seen. You know, it is just that they have the power to push the narrative and the power of propaganda, that they can convince people that their particular brand of terrorism, which is the worst terrorism because they're the most technologically advanced country as far as military is. You know, you saw how much money the United States spend on their military every year. I mean, point blank, any type of technology that is created in America, the first place it goes, first place it serves is the military. I was talking about this brother. Is a black man, brilliant black man by the name of Moses West. He created a machine that can take the water out of the air, you know, the humidity and water, and produce it into clean drinking water. So it's just like you're creating water out of thin air. Wonderful. And this brother has used this invention in Flint, Michigan, to help the brothers and sisters out there. He helped the brothers and sisters in Jackson, Mississippi. I think he helped some brothers in Puerto Rico, and he's doing the work. But the first place that technology went to was the military. That we gotta have it, you know. So yeah, the United States government is the most, spends the most resources on the military, has some of the most advanced weaponry. So, when you complain about an individual who has been brutalized and seeing their homeland brutalized from these terrorists all their lives, that they're in such a desperate condition that they're willing to put a bomb on and walk into an area and blow themselves up because they don't have the type of military might of the people that they fighting against. That's when you look at people who doing that. That's in order to bring a person to that point. You have to been a victim of real terrorism for a very long time, because at that point, that is a person who ain't got nothing else to lose. Like, you don't took everything else from me. So the only way that I can strike back to you is to kill myself. I'm willing to do that. You gotta imagine what type of terrorists have that person been faced with. So, but yeah, thank you for that comment, Melly Queen. You said that's one of the main reasons why I do not like the fact that black people feel that Obama did so much for us. Woo, Lord have mercy, you right about that. When during his term, they put over 800 military bases in Africa. Yeah, that's what you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We've been talking about that initiative called African. Basically a slick way to just colonize people all over. Yeah, so I'm agreeing. Oklahoma bombing, exactly. Black Wall Street, the Move family, as you just said. 1985, Move family. They dropped they dropped a bomb on a resident in Philadelphia.
1985.
Yep, 1985. I said 86. 1985, exactly. So you're right. Yes, I saw that documentary about Sister Susan. Very nice work as always. Thank you. Say exactly. The military has use of these technologies for years before we even know about it. They have been working on AI technology since back in the 1920s and 30s. Yeah, I mean, the technology of the day. What we're seeing, the technology that we have now, trust me, it's old. It's old. The United States have already exploited it. You tried to its full. The military has already exploited it as much as they possibly can. But I'm gonna go back to you, Grandmaster Teacher. I'm opening the mic up to you.
Let me know.
You on?
Okay, so even when we talk about 9/11, we talk about who did they go first to invade? Iraq.
Actually, it was Afghanistan.
No, they did Iraq before they did Afghanistan.
I thought they went Afghanistan, then Iraq.
No, they went to Iraq before they went to Afghanistan. Then they went to Afghanistan. So, but what I'm saying is, though, it's been proven that Saddam Hussein and Iraq, in his government report, it had nothing to do with 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Yet Bush went ahead to invade Iraq and to assassinate Saddam Hussein. So when we look at it, and 9/11 is a pretense for the United States to reassert its power. That's why the military budget is $177 trillion right now, because it rejuvenated. Bush was able to rejuvenate the military, and to increase the budget. Ever since Bush, Obama, Biden, and all that, and Biden it went to Vietnam, and guess what? What he offered to Vietnam. In other words, to sell Vietnam American weapons. So the American armory, the military is the biggest military armor, that has provided weapons for all kinds of people to, that the United States support corrupt forces of government and forces that to overthrow certain governments like Libya, and so when we talk about looking at 9, it's a pretense so that the United States could regain its military prominence, in the world, and to consolidate the existence of capitalism and throughout all the world forces in the world. And like I said, Biden just today, or what is it, today or yesterday, talking and to give an offer, Vietnam, to sell weapons to Vietnam, and the United States is a primary weapon seller, in the world, and so Vietnam better watch out, because if America, you start having cooperation on any level with this terrorist force, it's going to rebound on you, because they're going to use whatever forces they can to try to train you against China, so that you can have a war with China. Just as they did the pretense of making the Soviet Union bite the bit to do its stuff in Ukraine, and look at all that money, all the military, 1 billion just this week. The so-called defense secretary of the United States went to Ukraine and offered them $1 billion. And the bulk of that is for military, weapons. Who is the terrorist? Who can say, how can the United States, it's a hypocrisy of the United States, because it always has gone into these wars in different countries in the world in the name of democracy, when there's no democracy in the United States, except for the white supremacists. The white supremacists, and the white supremacists, we're not talking about all the white people. We're talking about the white power that is manifested by the rich and super rich whites throughout the world, so that they can maintain control and governance over the whole world, and to keep any country from becoming a power to contend in the economic system that they have established. So we have to begin to look at all these things so we can understand who is the real terrorist, and by all odds, the United States are the real terrorists. And when they're attacking people, it's usually freedom fighters, people who are trying to gain control of their country, who are trying to overthrow corrupt governments and corrupt foreign forces that have come in, that are still trying to maintain control, and are still stealing the resources of the so-called underdeveloped countries of the world.
Definitely. And I think
one very important thing we have to understand is that a lot of things that we have been conditioned and programmed to believe is really is really a part of a terrorist plan, a terrorist plot, a terrorist organization from a terrorist country. Because the propaganda we've taught that these people who, when you look at them on the news, they don't even have uniforms. They're fighting a superior military force in their regular clothes. I heard a comedian, I think it was Eddie Griffin, who was talking about when they used to call the people who were rebelling against the Iraqi war in Iraq to be the resistance forces in Iraq. This comedian said, like, man, United States, they over there fighting who? What's the Iraq army? What are their uniforms? They don't have one, because they fighting regular people. They are fighting civilians. These are people who see a invading force coming into their country, attacking them, and they doing whatever they can to try to fight back. So we've been taught that these people are insurgents, these people are terrorists. Well, you know, I guess they are insurgents when you understand what an actual insurgent is, but the propaganda has connected the word insurgent with terrorism. Now, understand the insurgent is a person who's involved in an insurrection, and the insurrection is a uprising or rebellion against a force or oppressive force. You know, so they even miseducating us on what very words mean, because most people would think, oh, an insurgent, that's a terrorist. No, that's not. That's just somebody who's really fighting against true terrorism. And I see Meliquin, you said U.S. is providing weapons for the war in Ukraine, just like Grandmaster Teacher said, you know. And early on our radio broadcast, you was talking about some of the things, the rebellions, the uprising against the oppressive colonial forces in Africa. You was kind of update our social media audience on some of the things.
So when we talk about, you know, like
we know that this past week we had Gabon, which is a small African country that was ruled by the French at one time, that have been overthrown by revolutionary forces, people who, because this family had ruled for about 30 years, you know, and had been corrupted, neo-colonial government. And so in countries like Niger, and countries like Mali, countries like Burkina Faso, who you know, who have overthrown their neo-colonial masters, and you know, and the French and the United States have have bases in all of these countries. The United States has 1,100 troops in Niger right now, and they have thousands of forces in Burkina Faso, not Burkina Faso, in Djibouti, in East Africa, and they're dropping they have drones dropping bombs on forces that are fighting, freedom fighters who are fighting to gain control of their country, fighting to overthrow corrupt governments and corrupt forces and classes. And the United States has become the sponsor of all of supporting these corrupt governments through AFRICOM. You know, AFRICOM was set up by George Bush and utilized by Obama to overthrow Gaddafi in Libya, and to allow the Egyptian president that had been elected, you know, in Egypt, and he also unleashed the forces of the United States against Somalia. In other words, have kept Somalia in what they call that, chaos, and in which people are starving to death in Somalia, and they're starving in Darfur now. You know, countries that had been supported by the United States, and so these are the kind of things that we have to really understand. And we're talking about neo-colonialism because we have people who look like us, who have are non-white in their complexion, who have become the forces to rule in the country, but they're actually it's white power in black faces, white power in brown faces, white power in whatever other non-white color, or over native people, native people who are in, that the United States have made in reservations, and then we got to see that when we talk about that this is our major point. In other words, our battle has to be with some of these forces, because they're going to come to support the United States or Europe, in their continued control of the world's resources, and so we're still talking about the system, talking about overthrowing the system. These people are in the process of trying to, or attempting to overthrow the system which controls the world, which is a capitalist system. But the white capitalist system is still presided over by white supremacists, which are the rich and the super rich.
Definitely. Always very important points, and I think it's very important. Y'all got to excuse. Sometimes we have a little echo going on. It's just a issue that we have not resolved yet, and it's kind of difficult to figure out how to resolve this particular issue. So y'all look over that. Hopefully, it's not too bad. But yeah, definitely. I mean, you're looking at a system that benefits a minority group of people, like you said, the rich and super rich, and it exploits and is devastating to the entire planet. And when for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Right. So when U.S. and Western power structures, forces go out and they attack and brutalize other countries, there's going to be a reaction to that. There's gonna, contradictions are within all things, and they always emerge. Even when you resolve one, another one comes to take its place. So because of this reign of terror in which the United States have been on for so many years, there's a lot of people who are really, are enemies of the United States. And we have been trained and we have been indoctrinated to believe that the people are the enemies of the United States are our enemies, when that is not actually the reality. A lot of times we talk about Cuba. Well, the United States going to the United States, those are supposed to be our enemies. But the Cuban people opened their doors up when our freedom fighters, who were fleeing persecution from a racist government, were trying to attack and assassinate and kill us and imprison us. It was the Cuban government that opened their arms up. We still have many of our freedom fighters in Cuba today, including, one of the most famous, Assata Shakur, which is the most wanted woman in history in America. So it's important. That's why, when we say we're trying to build our own institutions and ultimately have our own sovereignty, have control over our own lives, that's why it's important for us to do the due diligence and work and to bring these things into existence. Because if we don't have the control of our own educational system, then we are trained and conditioned with their propaganda machine to believe that the people we should be fighting against our own best interests. We should be going against individuals who actually have our best interests in mind. If you look at the perspective of the colonizer, then you take somebody like Gaddafi, for example. I think I saw this on the D.L. Hughley show. He always brags on, Obama, he was so good. He took out Osama bin Laden and Gaddafi. But if you understand what Gaddafi was actually doing, what he was actually trying to do, it was actually trying to fight against a system of oppression. Am I off with that?
No, that's true.
So
absolutely true.
Yeah, but we've been trained and conditioned. Gaddafi is this bad. He's just this evil person that we should have. We should hate and we should praise Obama because he got rid of him. He, murdered him, and all of these type of things. So, being under a system that benefits from our exploitation, we will be educated in a way, or miseducated in a way that is against our best interests. And that's what you see a lot within our community. That's why it's so important that we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. But if you could, just kind of enlighten us about Gaddafi.
Yeah, Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, he in 1971, he
overthrew the corrupt government of Libya and became the leader of Libya. And the first thing he did was to do an oil deal in which, Libya discovered they had oil, And so, with the oil companies, he made the oil company give the majority of the oil to the Libyan people. And he went and shared the oil money from his oil with the people. Matter of fact, everybody in Libya was being paid from the oil, fund. And he was bringing Africans from other parts of Africa to come into Libya and settle in Libya, and their families. And when the person got married, they were given money from the Libyan oil, from the Libyan government under Gaddafi. And so Gaddafi was a bad example for them. Gaddafi didn't kowtow to their power, and Gaddafi, fought back against the intrigues and all the things they were doing to Libya. And before that, they were looking for that, but they didn't have an opportunity because of his support in Libya, and until Obama became president, and Obama and Hillary Clinton, engineered, the overthrow, of the Libyan, of Gaddafi, and the assassination of Gaddafi. And now the situation in Libya now is that people do not have any access to the oil money, and the forces that have come into power are forces that they were willing partners to the United States and accomplices to NATO to do the no-fly zone in Libya so that Libya couldn't defend itself, and to the point of where it's the same way they did Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and to strangle the power, and ultimately to support forces and put arms into the hands of the people that wanted to overthrow and wanted to get that money from Libya. In other words, they thought they were going to be able to take control of the country after they assassinated Gaddafi. Now there's chaos in Libya right now as a result of Obama, and when we talk about Obama, with the miseducation of our people and the lack of education due to the propaganda, and a lot of our civil rights leaders have participated in the neo-colonial operation called Obama, to thinking that we have arrived as a people because they selected a president with a black face, but this president with a black face had white control, had even Zionist control, the Zionists are still, with Biden right now, the ones that that were controlling Obama, and to the extent, to the point where that now the United States is become more empowered through using AFRICOM, and Obama was more effective especially in using U.S. forces to kill some Somalia fishermen that were so-called blocking the boats, that were coming through the Red Sea and coming around Somalia and interfering with the livelihood of the people, of Somalia, and called them terrorists, some teenagers that were killed, to stop them from stopping the big ships and demanding payment for them for interfering with their fishing rights and stuff like that. And so and they got us thinking that these were terrorists. These, and how you're a terrorist and you might not have not even a machine gun or anything like that or whatever when it comes down the so-called idea thing of what a terrorist is supposed to be, And so when we look at that, this is what we got to look at in terms of Obama. So neo-colonialism reigns right here in America, in a black mayor. I'm looking at the New York mayor, the black guy. He went to Israel and have come back and trying to utilize the Israeli use of drones to fly over our community, over our neighborhoods in New York. He made a trip to Israel, you know what I'm saying? And then come back. Now they got drones flying in New York. The neo-colonial, this is a neo-colonial mayor, black mayor, that is talking about, that the so-called immigrants are such a huge problem in New York, and and plead with Biden that they don't care nothing about any governments in America or any governance of us in America. And so we got these characters that are basically got us as a people fooled and thinking that voting counts. That voting has not produced any change, any significant change in our condition in America. And we got to begin to call neo-colonialism out. It's a white power with a black face, and in all our areas where we live. That's why we said we must separate ourselves and create our own government, and so that we can govern ourselves. But we know that that's a revolutionary activity. We know that they had a civil war when some white folks tried to withdraw, from the United States. So we must understand that this is a revolutionary act that we're talking about, that in terms of our provisional government and all that, and we must support all the forces of resistance that have been have been characterized as terrorists, except those who are supported by the United States. And so when we look at that, that's what the Gaddafi, the story of the Gaddafi is a blatant example of what the United States would do, even under a person that people call a so-called black president. It doesn't make any difference what color a person is in the United States empire. They're acting on behalf of white supremacy.
Exactly.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Let me try to get rid of this echo momentarily. But yeah, make sure y'all join us on our other broadcasts. Ms. Melly Queen always hits us up with public service announcements. Thank you for joining us on the New African Broadcast Association. But check out our other shows, New African Perspective, on Mondays at 1:00 p.m. Central Time on Facebook Live. That is tomorrow. Foundations of the Nation on Tuesdays at 10:00 Central Time on Facebook Live. Matter of fact, I think this past Monday they was talking about how to prepare yourself for the changing of the season, which is very important because I know it's still hot, but believe it, we're actually getting ready to transition into another season. Fall is about to come, the weather is about to change, and we have to make sure that we prepare ourselves accordingly so we can deal with whatever kind of, whatever the new season comes. A lot of people get sick when the weather changes. So there are things that you can be doing to help protect yourself, to fortify your immune system, to build your, immune up. You can take your vitamins. You can have a lot. I think it's a good idea to try to fortify your vitamin D intake, because during the winter, you know that the sun is not as strong. And vitamin D, we get vitamin D naturally from the sun, but in the winter we're not outside as much. We're in the house a lot more. And if you just analyze what doctors say, most of our people suffer from a vitamin D deficiency. And vitamin D help regulate your immune system and do a whole lot of things. In fact, if you looked at most of the people who actually died from COVID-19, although most of them had other comorbidities, other illnesses, the majority of them suffer from a vitamin D deficiency. This is something that's common knowledge on all the research has it, but it's not something that was put out in the mainstream. But if you actually follow the scientific journals, this is really quite common. So check out the Foundation of the Nations on Tuesdays at 10:00 a.m. They talk a lot about health and wellness. Conversation Between Comrades on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Facebook Live. Truth and Power Corner with Sister Melly Queen on Fridays at 5 p.m. Central Time on Blog Talk Radio. You can call in and hear them live and comment and ask questions live. If you just dial phone number, area code 515-605-9782. And thank everybody for always supporting us. Free the land. Definitely thank you for that, Melly Queen. And also, it's that time again. Save the date, March 29th, 30th, and 31st, 2024, Nation Day. We will be celebrating in Columbus, Georgia, Dr. John Henry Clark Town, Free the Land. And definitely looking forward to that. Again, last Nation Day was a blast. Had a great time. And man, it was just wonderful, man. I had an opportunity to connect with a lot of people and build on a lot of opportunities to build and continue the nation build. So, if you want to connect and build and continue this process of taking back control of our community, our lives, connect with us on Nation Day. It's going to be in Columbus, Georgia this year. And it's always making your New African vote count. We will be having our New African elections this weekend. Oh, no, my bad, not this weekend. The weekend of November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, 2023. Get connected and get the information you need to get involved with building our new African nation and government. Free the land. It's really important, that we actively participate in nation building, and we have a government, a provisional government that is in place now, that is making moves that are trying to, build, trying to free the land. Right now, the leadership for the last few years, we've been under the leadership of Sama Ott and Mama Ayo Deli, and they've been doing a great job. There's been a president and vice president, and they're up for election again, for re-election. So, and I'm not going to turn this to a election campaign, but yeah, get out and participate in the nation, become an active participant in nation building. So we can take our future in our own hand. We can, not depend on Black Obama to do something for us, even though he might look good and sound good. That's called neo-colonialism, as Grandmaster Teacher has been telling us. Just because you got a Black president doesn't mean that you have a Black government. Just because you have a Black school intendant or a Black principal doesn't mean that's a Black school. It's all about who has the power, who is making the decision, who's creating curriculum in the school. So, and that's just not us. The old goat. Hey, how you doing, the old goat? Watching from Ghana. Well, that's what I'm talking about. We've been talking about Ghana and other African nations. So good to hear from you in international program. But yeah, we've been talking about terrorism. The true face of terrorism. Who are the true terrorists? Are they some individuals from overseas that the United States have been saying are the terrorists? They even will correctly call them insurgents and have connect insurgency with terrorism, even though that's not a real connection. But or is it the people who have been brutalizing and exploiting the world's resources for the last few hundred years? The people who have murdered and robbed and pillaged, dropped bombs, used some of the most advanced technology that the world has ever seen to cause havoc and murder and exploitation and robbery and rape of the entire planet. The same individual who is really destroying the planet. Are they the real terrorists? You tell me. Who are the real terrorists? We have example after example after example of this government committing crimes against humanity. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to turn that over to you while I fix this echo we got going on.
Okay. All right. So my brothers and sisters, there are people, including myself, who have been on the terrorist list in America because we struggle for Black power, for power by people, for Pan-Africanism. And excuse me. So this is one of the things that we have to begin to understand, that, in particular, beginning with the Nixon administration, we had a list of black organizations, including churches and stuff, that were participating in activity, protests and government activities and all that. And we were put on a terrorist list. We're still on that terrorist list. We're still being investigated by the FBI and the CIA and all of and because anybody that talks about revolution or talks about or acts on organizing the people and bring them into organization is considered a potential terrorist, is not a terrorist by the United States government. The United States government is the biggest and the most powerful terrorist force in the world. And until we understand, and that's what we got to educate our people about. I mean, we got people still trying to seek redress within an American system of laws who think voting, that we died for voting. We did not die for voting rights. We died for freedom. We wanted to free ourselves. We wanted to liberate ourselves, black liberation, African liberation. And so everything has been done to undo all the positive things that we've done in terms of trying to get our people to just survive in America. And the Black Panther Party and other organizations and many other local organizations were undermined, and people arrested and people killed by the U.S. government and by the local police forces. Standing up against police violence and all of these. So it's a joke when we look at the situation today, and they want us to talk about racism. Well, we will never eliminate racism in what they call white racism or whatever in terms of in America or any place, because it's within their minds and within their heart, and we don't need to try to convert white people. We need to take ourselves and put ourselves in power so we can confront whatever situation that we are experiencing, and to liberate ourselves and we use all powers of persuasion, but ultimately we have to have power, and nobody can do anything against us unless they are investing the power of the white supremacist forces that run this world, that run this country, and they try to get black people to talk about African people to have a guilt trip, because we talk about our history, because we talk about that we need to have reparation. Reparation was never awarded to us as a result, but we have to learn that reparations have not traditionally been given any people. It's always been a war that has been won by people that they have been given reparation for, even when it was sometimes illegally. For example, like the Germans were forced to pay reparations, in World War I and World War II, after World War I and World War II, but they were in alliance with those forces that they attacked, and so they were forced to make reparations to the countries that they, because they got defeated. And these are the kind of things that we have to begin to understand. The reparations, and we respect the Japanese that are supporting the reparation movement for us, but they were giving up pittance. And the only reason they were given that was because the United States wanted to continue its oppressive relationship with Japan, to have its base in Okinawa, for example. And these are the kind of things that we have to understand, that it's only through armed power that the United States has that is able to perpetuate this terrorism and to create terrorist, situations to overthrow governments that they do not like, that do not cooperate with their capitalist motives.
Exactly.
Let me try to figure this real quick. So It is going on an hour, and we actually have other meetings and other things we have to attend to. So we're gonna kind of cut it right here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I see my brother Nwa Bantum number 2 says salutes from Jacksonville, Florida, Gullah Haiti, corridor capital. Organize, organize, organize. UNIAACL, EACLAME networking. That's right. Big ups to you, brother. You in Jacksonville. You might give us some of those insights on that speaking of terrorists, that terrorist that was right down in Jacksonville who shot up that Dollar General. Down there and killed those three brothers, whatever those brothers and sisters, those three black people down there, who New Africans down there, who actually was trying to shoot up a historically black college, but fortunately they were alerted to someone right, and he had to go to a Dollar General. So yeah, if you have some insights on that, since you're down there, let us know. But like I said, we appreciate everybody for joining in. We've been talking about the true face of terrorism, and it's obvious that the true face of terrorism is this powerful government which has been terrorizing the entire earth for many, many centuries, stealing the resources, stealing, the labor, and making themselves the most powerful, most influential nation on the planet. And anybody who goes against them becomes a victim of terrorism. They get attacked. They get murdered. They get imprisoned. They get propaganda spread on their name and being looked at as terrorists. It happened all through our history, and it continues to happen to this very day. And all of us who dare step out, we run the risk of having to endure the wrath of the biggest terrorist organization in the nation. Before I get out of here, anything you want to leave the people with, Grandmaster Teacher?
Yeah, so we have to really begin to, like I said, educate ourselves and educate others so that we'll be able to organize. We cannot individually, overcome or overthrow the system. We have to come together. We have to be an organization. And I'm talking to individuals, that want to just be individuals. It does not work. You have to either create or join an organization that is working for the people. If you're not doing that, you will not be effective in trying to overcome the things that we've been confronted with. And so I think all the forces that we're talking to that are conscious forces, we need to grab new individuals and bring them into the Republic of New Afrika or into a Pan-African organization or any organization that you see fit that's going to organize to do the real thing, which is real revolution. That is that we're not going to be a part of this system. We're going to break away from this system, and we're going to do everything we can to support any forces that are fighting and resisting this system.
Definitely. And like I said, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you for your comments. Hit that like button. Let us know that you're out there. And if there's anybody who you think would benefit from this type of conversation, tag them in on the program, share the program, spread the word out, because we're trying to do something for real here. I say we got to go to a meeting because we're not just trying to talk the talk, we're trying to walk the walk. Like my comrade always quoting Amigos, walking like you're talking. But I am your comrade, Brother Prophecy, with Grandmaster Teacher for Dolly. And we're going to leave y'all with our freedom cry. And that is, free the land, free the land, free the land.
America. full of promises. Time to cash them in, you run from it quick. You never keep your word, I learned from it quick. You keep abusing me, you dumb.
Europeans murdered 98% of the indigenous population right here in Turtle Island in order to steal the land. An entire nation of African people were captured and forced into a brutal system of chattel slavery just so they could work and cultivate the land. All wars are fought over land, not over terrorism, not over religion, not even to win the hearts and minds of the people, but for the actual land and the resources within the land. So it is safe to say that land is the foundation to all freedom. So if we truly want to be free, then our struggle is for land.